person at NAB. Yay! I'm going to introduce our panel today. This is a session that is hosted by the Society of Camera Operators on the role of on-set communication. It is a sponsored session by Riedel. And these are, our panelists today are all active members of the SOC. And we do, where's Justin? Raise your hand. Justin is here if we have any questions that come up. And it's going to be a casual discussion today about on-set communication. Each of these camera operators have a distinct experience, and I'm actually going to start from my far left. Gilles Corbel, SOC. He shot Nightmare Alley, Shape of Water, Pacific Rim, and he resides in Toronto and has been nominated for Camera Operator of the Year in film twice now, and most recently for Nightmare Alley. Simon Jays, to the right, Simon Jays, SOC. Can I say what you're currently working on? Okay. I had to ask if I could currently say what he's working on, which is Mandalorian. A lot of very interesting technology. He's also worked on Wonder Woman 84, Quantum of Solace, the list goes on and on. He is also a member of the SOC's Educational Committee, and he is an active member with the Society. And Eric Fletcher in the middle. Eric Fletcher has worked on a couple of seasons of Grey's Anatomy and Dexter, and has done a lot of work on television, scripted television. And he is the technology chair with the Society of Camera Operators, and is going to be leading the conversation today. So I'm going to let you take it away. And
all right, cool.
All right, take it away, Eric.
Thanks. So we're here to obviously talk about the importance of communication on set, which sometimes is challenging. The joke is always we're in the communications industry and we don't. And a lot of that is sometimes just the problems of getting information from a video village out to an operator, out to a focus puller, to a gaffer, to a key grip, dolly grip, things like that. So there's been a bunch of ways to do it in the past, stuff that we'll call traditional, which has been Walkie Talkies and things like that. And then there's been forms of communication using single point intercoms that are not multi-channels. And then Riedel came along and changed the entire landscape of this with the ability to integrate multiple forms of communication into one belt pack, and being able to talk to multiple peoples on individual streams and get the information across. And both Simon and Gilles have been doing shows that have been using a lot of this. I haven't done nearly as many shows doing this as they have. And as technology grows, the need for an easier, more centralized communication system is growing. So let's start. I don't know which one of you guys wants to start, but talk about, okay, Gilles. Let's start talking about what the challenges are of a conventional system.
In a conventional system, you're always in a queue half the time if you want to get your word out or find out about a shot. It's almost like you have to wait till a pre-existing conversation lapses, and you're always out of the loop. And as soon as you ask your question, you really don't know if you asked the right questions. Whereas the new system that Riedel has, ultimately you can eavesdrop, and ultimately you don't have to ask questions. Generally, you get the information just by spying on different conversations all day long. And spying is good because it's a way to combine 5 conversations at the same time, and that's time. So ultimately, if I want to know what a shot is, sometimes maybe I don't know what the shot is, and I can just say, I know that guy knows, so I'll just listen to his conversations. After about 5 minutes, I know everything. And it's quick. That's really, it saves so much time.
Simon, you have some interesting challenges because in the shows that you're doing lately, you're working in a volume, which has people way offset, making sure the volume works. And then you have to deal with the DP, the dolly grip, your ACs. How is this changing? Where were the holes in traditional, and how is this filling those holes?
Well, for sure, now there's many more people in the conversation for the sets I'm on. It's not just the dolly grip or crane operator. It's people at computers in other rooms, and in some cases we're talking to people in San Francisco when our set is in Manhattan Beach. So Riedel have been able to fix that one for sure. I have used intercoms my whole career with coming up through cranes and stuff, and when I first saw this, I jumped at it because it's everything that I've been looking for and needing over the years. The trouble is, when you get into that many people having a conversation, then you can get into overload, and to try and hear the people you need, if they're all on one channel, it gets rough, and you end up tuning it out and actually missing cues. So being able to separate it into departments, stuff like that, is a really, really useful function.
Yeah, because sometimes, and it should be said, Simon's background comes from the fact that he brought the first technocrane into the United States, and with a technocrane, there's more people added to the layers of communication, and now with the volume, I guess there are times that your crane operator has to be talking to people that he'd never talked to before.
That's entirely true, and also there's things I'm saying to people that I don't need to flood their channels with it, and you can easily set up those party lines, those groups, and keep it clean and keep it concise for those that need to hear certain information and those that don't need to hear other. It's a very, very effective system.
Yeah, because in the past with a conventional system, especially an RF-based system, we might hop over to a Gripper Electrics channel, barge into their conversation and go, hey, it's Eric Camera, I need to get this done. And unfortunately, everybody in that channel hears it, and it interrupts their flow. Whereas with the Riedel, you can talk directly to the gaffer and go, hey, is this happening or whatever.
That's exactly right. And also you can set it up that even if I can turn people off so I don't hear them, in some cases you can program to have them be able to page you to open up that channel of conversation again, which is fantastic. Because in the past, if I didn't want to hear them, I would just do this.
Yeah.
And then I'm not listening to anyone, and the whole communication falls apart. The other thing that's interesting about our show is that we have a multi-unit and multi-stage setup that we have access, that our DPs often have to go off and pre-light another volume, and they can walk over to there, connect with those antennas, and still be in contact with the main unit and watching Q-take or a feed of what's going on, and be able to comment and weigh in on that kind of stuff, which is, again, that takes a big installation. But just from a standpoint, even if it was 10 users, one antenna, one installation, you can still break up that into a very usable, into just a camera department. You could break it up between cameras and stuff like that. It's very useful.
so that each camera can have their own channel, but then there's an all-call from the DP or the A operator talking to everybody.
That's exactly right. The other thing where this really came into its own was a little COVID-driven, that we had to be separated, and for the first time, where all film crews have been used to being in the mix, in the scrum together, and yelling across and having that relationship, and we were totally cut off by being forced to step away from the set. That we were initially we were having to do everything remotely and with remote heads and cranes, and I wouldn't even be on the set, and to then ask an actor to make a change, I would have to go via the comms to the nearest person to relay that, and again, that's a new world for us here.
Jeff?
How many times? I don't know how many times we didn't have enough time to get out an instruction because they're rolling. And it's like, oh, well, we'll just wait for the next take, because they'll figure out that we need to be able to have time to explain and relay. And I don't know how many times you just say, look, to make a point, if they want to go ahead and shoot, but we need to be able to get this out. And now we can get it all out. We can manage the flow of information and get it out to where it needs to go, and have confidence that somebody got it.
I found that the ability to pinpoint between operators was super helpful. The times I've used it, when I could, if I'm on A camera and doing a wide, and the B operator's trying to push into the shot, and again, since we're all separated because it's COVID and we're all running remote heads, and it's like they can tunnel into me directly, nobody else hears, and it's like, hey Eric, where's your edge of line? How far can I go? And we can have this quiet backroom conversation, and which also keeps the noise level down on set, because there are some sets that are very noise sensitive, and it's kind of nice. I mean, the other thing that I like about it, and I'm sure both of you will agree, is now we don't have multiple earpieces in. We don't have a conventional intercom, a walkie-talkie that's a two-wire going to a ComTech, and maybe an additional one on this side, because I know for myself, I've got enough voices in my head by myself. I don't need 40 others from multiple sources that I can't identify.
That I would absolutely weigh on this. For one woman, I had to have two intercom systems, a walkie-talkie and a ComTech, and then sometimes PPE for explosions and stuff like that, and it's just impossible.
And if all of a sudden there's gunfire and you have to protect your ears, how does that work?
And then when you've got multiple walkie-talkies, it's like, which microphone am I using? Just grab them all.
In that situation, definitely what happens is
Yeah, exactly.
this.
Exactly.
So that is a big advance with Riedel, and is that they have a very easy way to bring in all these systems, and you can treat things like production sound as a separate channel and have it on during the take when you need it, when you need to get cues, and then just turn it off when you're discussing the shot and don't need to hear all that. But we've also interfaced it with walkie-talkies, which are still needed. You're never going to get rid of those on a film set because their range is better. But this way, the people wearing the Riedel belt pack don't have to wear a walkie. The walkie sits at a base station, one walkie instead of 50, and they can cue and listen to those walkies. So each department will get a walkie on the base, and our guys can still utilize them through one device.
And there's the ability that if you used a Bluetooth headset, you could leave your belt pack behind and only talk on one channel.
To an extent.
To an extent.
Yeah.
Yeah. But that's for the certain people who are like, just even one device on their belt's too much.
Yeah, I find you get so used to having the conversation there that if you get strayed too far from the belt back, you can lose it. Also, the crew are loving the Bluetooth function, but sometimes you can get stuck with the wavelength that works on. That is more subject to interference than the belt packs themselves, which I have to say are remarkably clear. They're like beat the pants off everything else as far as a completely clear band, and we've had no issue with them.
Well, nowadays there's some shows that there's so much RF on the set that they have frequency coordinators, and you can't have certain walkie-talkies. If you're running explosions, you can't have certain walkie-talkies. But because this is 900 megahertz decked, it's not on anything that's really being populated on set right now.
And that's also become a problem on volumes, because when you have 4 hard walls and a ceiling and full of frequencies, we actually had our frequency coordinator come in, and it was the only clear spectrum in the entire place. And the first season we didn't have Riedel, and we were doing this all day.
Yeah.
So
I would be really curious to see how many setups you can do without Riedel and with. Like, you could probably quantify the difference in terms of how efficient you can get.
certainly in our use, yes, because there's no way you can be in the same space with the people running the volume or people in San Francisco.
Yeah.
So it's a great solution for our particular shoot. But for any shoot, I got into this, and to be completely transparent, I'm clearly a biased user. I'm also a company owner that deals with Riedel. But I initially got into it as I saw completely on a selfish standpoint, that I wanted to make sure I had a Riedel kit wherever I was shooting, and then it just grew from there. So,
And certainly, if I think it speaks to producers' questions as to whether or not to use it, and it's like, well, that's why I'm saying it's more efficient, therefore it saves money. I mean, I don't think it's a question.
that's a no-brainer. I mean, I must admit, the initial conversation with the producers was they choked a bit because it is it's not just the cost of when you're talking. We have like 70 plus people on it. The issue becomes that it's not a line item in the cine world. In broadcast, it's a given. Film, they're still working that out, and but any job that I've had this on, they've all called back. We have one director who was specifying it because he likes to play music, he likes to use voice of God, he likes to talk to actors on earwigs to give them line feeds, and we were able to set up a system where he has that ability, and as different channels, different button presses, can talk to all of those people, and then in his mind he can play music to everyone. Everyone turns it off. They don't want to hear it, but he's able to do that, and it's been on every show that he's had since, and I think that every crew that comes across it is taken away. It's very rare I can go on a film set now where someone doesn't know it.
I mean, and the thing is when we did COVID production and everything that changed, a system like this it definitely works better than a conventional intercom system, because part of the problem is nobody can understand. Walkie Talkies are hard enough to understand. Now you add a layer of cloth and a mumbling first AD, and it gets more difficult. And with the Riedel, it's got a much better sound.
And that does play. I mean, COVID certainly made it easier for us to get it on the show in the first place, because it was a no-brainer. But we did have one issue where someone was quarantining. They didn't have COVID, but they had to quarantine. And we basically hooked it up to Zoom. And through the Q-Take protected feed that they had, they could watch what we were shooting, and through Zoom and being connected to the intercom system, they could effectively be on set with us, and that worked very well.
And certainly super quiet sets exist, where you have performances that are super sensitive, and that just heightens, it's just that little difference that makes it so you can communicate in hushed tones and still be understood. An action set, not so much, but on Nightmare Alley, oh my God, like Guillermo requires absolute silence, and we were able to work in that environment, and it's super sensitive, all that stuff, so it hugely made a difference.
So as operators, our dream system setting up would be the ability to talk to the DP, talk to the director, talk to our focus puller, talk to our dolly grip, and we don't need to be bothered with the other things that we would hear in Channel 6, which is our first talking to the second, our second is talking to the loaders, because we can put those all out on different channels. Just so everybody here understands just how much and how many different things can you do and how many inputs can you bring in. Like you said, with this system, nobody has to be in the same room. This is a truly global communication system at that point. You could be talking, if you're a Cameron, you could be talking to Weta in New Zealand while shooting Avatar stuff here, and you guys were talking to San Francisco.
I mean, I would, my ideal setup now is to have all of camera on it, the keys for electric, board operator, key grip, dolly grips, some cases the director, to be able to talk to the operator, especially if it's multi-camera, but certainly the ADs. And I find that we're not shouting across the set to get something done for us, but also it's very effective putting it in with the sound of God, and that's the PA system we have on set. A big part of the problem of that is if you're not near the speaker, you never hear it. So the way we set it up is we have that they can use their headset mic to broadcast over it, but every belt pack can hear it or not if they so wish. So sometimes cues are being done that way, and and it means that we can turn the speaker down a little on set, because everyone is getting it also over their real headset. And I think it's just a much gentler approach than screaming, and I wholeheartedly believe it's the wave of the future.
And you can see directors get worn out on anything else. They're going to be running around. I think when directors embrace it, I think it helps with their energy level and not having to yell. And it's funny, sometimes you're going to do a job where the director's going to yell all the time, and they say, "Why are you taking that job?" I can deal with the guy. So so if you can manage your actor and not have him yell, it's a win.
Or if you're doing TV series, you don't get that option. You just have to deal with that director, and there's going to be 8 or 10 days of pure hell. And now it's a little better because of this. What have you found the easiest way to sell production on getting what's obviously a more expensive system on the set, but in the end will actually save them money?
That's a great question, because I've made a business out of this, and
that's why I asked you.
It's put the ADs on it, because if they see they're the ones that sort of generate the speed and the getting the day, and if they can absolutely equate savings to the communication system if they're on it. If they're not, they don't understand or believe that it's doing anything. So that's my first sell, is to get them on it, and if they're on it, then it becomes a required piece of equipment.
And then at that point, you can make it more of a production mandate than it's coming from camera and we're trying to push
At that point, I don't care if
Yeah,
that.
exactly. You're just cashing a check. Okay. What would you, and Giles, what would you recommend as a base minimum system coming onto a show? If you're doing, say, a feature film with Gamero and, doing what he does, what would a base system be for that? Because that's going to be different than a base system for Simon, and it's going to be different for a base system for me.
Yeah, I mean, I think you would be able to answer that better, but certainly, like on a Guillermo show, there's a lot of crane work, so that's very important. But the world doesn't operate just with cameras. So on a small show, ADs, camera, lighting, grip. Are those I mean, set deck maybe not so much, because if you need something done, it's usually through the ADs that gets done.
Yeah, whereas on the show, Gray's, actually I took care of set deck.
Right.
I can't, and that's the problem in those, they don't listen to radios half the time, so at that point you're actually yelling, which I hate to do.
I really don't think it's going to replace the Walkie. I think it works in harmony with the Walkie. I think that, in essence, it's shooting crew that need it. There's some anomalies to that. Certainly on our show, puppeteers are a big part of it, because there's, sometimes like 5 or 6 people pulling the strings of Baby Yoda, and they all need to be in communication and get directorial cues and stuff like that. So I would say shooting crew is what I would always be aiming for, and then you'll find people saying, we really need this person to be on it, and I think in a year or two we'll see it be set wide.
Construction, usually it's walkies. Drivers, walkies.
We deal with.
I don't think hair, makeup, and wardrobe need to be on it.
There's certainly no sort of claims for Riedel that the range is anything like a walkie. So as soon as you get into a situation where sometimes the antennas can't get outside to the truck, so we actually find we're taking an antenna out and putting it into a truck alley to be able to service that.
To add more radiation to the environment.
There you go. But the connecting to the walkies and having walkies part of the communication system is a big ability for that.
So how does that work?
You put you need a device from Riddle that is an interface. They call it an NSA, and that's how you get production sound, anything into it. Like you can even have a third-party intercom system go into it. Basically any audio feed in and out. And then there are some ports on that are triggerable, and we've made an interface that will allow you to key a walkie off of that. So on the system we currently have 3 walkies. One's set to production, one's set to grip, and one to electric. But mainly because camera are all on the whole system. But we program any button on the belt pack is programmable. So if you have 1 through 6 buttons, 4 on the top, 2 on the side, and then the 7th reply button, which is generally set up out of the box to be a reply button. So whoever speaks to you, you can press that if you don't have to look to see what channel they're on. When we set up a walkie, we make the big red button, the walkie transmit. If you get into more than one walkie, you're going to need to use another button, but that's how we do it.
How difficult is the system for the owner-operator to set up?
Good question. It is highly customizable, and you can go very deep. So you can get into deep water very quickly.
But you could also just do a basic setup.
Exactly. So out of the box, if we're sending it somewhere where we don't know who's running it, we would basically just set, button 1 to go to button 1 and button 2 to go to button 2, and just have 6 channels basically. And from that point, you can get in, and it can be person to person, it can be party lines, or it can be like what we like to call broadcast, where you get a listen only to, you're always listening to channel 1 walkie, or you're always listening to Voice of God. And you can have a number of those but you can only turn that. You can vary the volume of each channel separately. So you can put those, the ones you're just monitoring, you can put lower. You can also program certain people to be priority. So if you have, normally if I have a soft-spoken director, I don't know where you find them, but if you did have one, you could.
There are none anymore.
You could program them to be priority. So basically, it will put a cap on everyone else, so they get. My DP likes to call it Big Dog, and he'll press that button every now and then and just and take control of the set again. So it's highly customizable. For that reason, I would always recommend that someone who's at least trained, or if you're short term as a tech, because you also have. They're very intuitive, the belt packs, and crews learn to use them, and it becomes second nature. You don't even look where it's on your belt. For me, this button 1 is always a camera in the crane that I'm using. And for that reason, you can. It's quick to teach people in its use. It's not so quick to teach people in the level of programming you can get into. So we send it out carefully at the beginning, and but you can really fine tune it for whatever you want it to do.
I one little note is, the old walkie system, imagine driving at 100 miles an hour and having to look down and select channel 10 or whatever. That's something you don't have to worry about the Riedel.
The other thing that's nice about the Riedel is a walkie, you'll generally go through 2 bricks a day if they've got a decent set of chargers. The Riedel, it's all day.
It's about 16 hours. Which is,
that's all day.
I hope no day is that long.
Let's not allow them past that.
Yeah.
The Riedel's dead, time to go home.
Yeah. So, and they charge fast too. So we don't carry that. The only reason we carry spare batteries is for people who forget to charge them. And through the interface that which is a GUI interface, you can plug in, and for whoever the responsible person is on set, they can actually see how people's batteries are doing. So often I'll have like a PA run up to me and just hand me another brick for it if I had forgotten to plug it in.
Now, one other question, since you are doing those shows that are highly secretive, has the studio said anything about privacy?
They have not, but clearly, the question behind the question is, they're encoded transmissions, so that no one's going to sit on the side of the lot and try and find out what's going on.
And you can have another show with a set of Riedels right next to you.
Which we do.
Which you do, and there's no crossover.
And that...
which is not
just
the
to
case
talk
for
about
Walkies.
like this, the big picture of like where you can go with this. That you need you need an antenna for every 10 belt packs in the standalone system, and then so 20 people, you'd have 2 antennas. But then if you need to get to the trucks outside, you can put 1 antenna out there, and as long as there's only 10 people outside, then they're on, and they come back in, so another person can go out. We have fiber link between all our stages and have set them up as that, so you can walk into any stage and connect. And for most parts, it's on one network, and your belt pack is picking up. So you have we have 2 DPs, we have two of everything pretty much. Some days you'll find you're on the main unit, some days you'll find you're on the second unit. So it's as quick as with the same belt pack, just changing a profile. And I can go, now I'm the main unit operator, and now I'm the second unit operator. And that way, I'm just speaking to those people on the main unit if I'm on the main unit, and the second unit if I'm on the second unit. And yet, if I needed to speak to someone on the other unit, I could just flip profiles quickly, have that conversation, then come back to where I'm at, which is incredibly powerful.
So basically what we're learning is the bottom line is more advanced communication makes life easier on set because it gives more options, allows you to direct your conversation to who needs to be directed to, and cut down the noise, which allows us to be more efficient.
Absolutely. And I've completely satisfied the thing of any job that I'm going on, this is coming with me. It's like it would be very hard to go back now.
I mean, is that what you're finding also, Joss?
Totally. And I brought it up earlier, I'll never go back. It's almost like it has to be on the contract. Obviously that won't happen, but I'd love for it to be there. Yeah, it's not, again, no brainer.
I mean, and, I have tinnitus,
So do I.
loud sets drive me insane.
Yeah.
So anything that makes a set quieter and isn't a walkie-talkie that is scratchy or something like that in my ear makes my day easier. And the better sound quality for me has always been a sales, because I can hear people clearer, because it's maybe not a frequency that's triggered my tinnitus.
Yeah, I have tinnitus as well. I probably
We've
know
done
more.
too many explosions.
Yeah, fully.
I'd say there's one other big thing here with the actual sound quality of them is that there's no white noise. And that's something over the years where I find that I would not be able to get through the day without taking the headset off. And with this, if no one's talking, there's no noise. And therefore, the earpiece can stay in, and you get the communication when it happens, rather than someone walking up to you and going, "Why aren't you wearing your headset?"
So the bottom line is the Riedel makes us more efficient.
Absolutely.
Does anybody have any questions?
Go for it.
Yeah.
We actually use these on our shows, and we were just talking about the fact that we keep trying to make production understand that we need them. And we've all started to invest in the bone, vibration headsets.
Aftershocks, open comms, yes.
But I don't personally like it, although I don't love the thing in my ear either, because I always feel like I can't quite hear enough. So I just wanted to hear what kind of headset you like.
I'll answer because I have the mic. I actually invested in a UE custom molded one, so I'm in that business now, I guess. So the price wasn't scary, but I think anyone who's getting into shows where that's the way to go, because you don't need as much volume because they're deeper in your ear. They're incredibly comfortable, but there's a lot you can use. I've shied away from Bluetooth, not because I wouldn't want to be on it. It's just the the frequency issues on our sets are just so crazy, and the Bluetooth doesn't survive that.
Yeah, I agree. I had the same aftershock thing, and you end up just going hardwire.
Yeah.
Although that would be, there's many audio settings that can happen in the belt pack that are worth playing with, because there's ways to make them sound louder and a little clearer. There's some headsets I would shy away from. I'm not going to mention those now, but in general, I would go more with whatever's comfortable for you, because if you're not wearing it, you're not hearing what's going on, and that would be my first recommendation.
Alrighty. I think that we pretty much covered it. Okay. Are there any other questions? So we're being told there's more questions.
All right.
Hold on, Craig.
Sorry about that.
No, it's fine. So thanks, guys. You spoke about convincing production of the cost, but how have you been able to convince ADs to get on it, or DPs who are used to other wireless intercom systems? Why do I have to learn something new? How have you found it effective to communicate to them the value? Thank you.
They just have to be smart about it. It's really showing them. ADs, the time to show them is not when they're working. If you hand them this new device that they have no idea how to use, you're going to fall flat on your face. So I try and get in there in prep and do it that way. But I haven't had one person who's used it who's not then wanting to use it on the next one. So the way to do it is ask for demos on the show you're on. I'll happily give them. But that's the way I did it with Technocrane and everything. Like you get a new piece of equipment. The only way people are going to know what it does is by using it.
Right.
And once they do, if they're smart, they'll make the decision based on that show.
I mean, most ADs are going to say yes to anything that helps them communicate, and helps make them more efficient. ADs are generally going to say yes.
It's also what you had said earlier about spying on conversations. If now we're talking in hushed tones, an AD is not picking up on what's going on the set. For them to listen in, they can kind of... there was always an AD that knew when a DP asked for their still camera, they were almost ready to shoot and didn't have to say, when are you going to be ready?
There's all sorts of triggers on a set when you know you're at that point.
Yes. So having them listen in, and all the better ADs will see that and do that. I haven't been on a show where the AD hasn't wanted to hear what camera is saying.
It also works the other way, because when we hear the AD say that they're walking the actors in, it changes the tone on the set that we know that we're now 3 minutes imminent.
And you have to have your house in order.
Exactly. So now we can hear that call, which oftentimes the AD buries and surprises on us. And now we know that, and we can be on top of it. And it goes back to that spying thing.
And to be clear, I don't think the ADs are not getting off the walkies. I mean, and really on the AD standpoint, the only people who are on it is the first AD, and the second that is there to cover the first if they walk away.
Right.
The time for sure when they're on it is if the director's on it as well, and that is just usually down to whether the director is a tech head or not.
One thing too is when someone starts, let's say in the camera department, they're a trainee, and I always know you have a conversation with the focus puller, that person has set ears. They know what to listen they know the sound of a person's voice, and it also the whole Riedel philosophy seems to be that way as well. So it's just being able to pick up on everything and being aware. It's a game changer for sure.
I mean, like I said earlier, it gets all down to information. The more information we all have on set, the better we're able to do. You know, I was having the conversation earlier. I've always described the position of the camera operator as we're a professional problem solver. We solve the problems on set, and those problems usually involve panning and tilting, but sometimes they involve something outside. And the way you solve a problem is you have the most information you can have. And if you have a system like this, where you can listen to multiple conversations that aren't deafening and that get information across, you can better solve the problems before they even happen, which makes you and your communication system more valuable.
Amen.
And I think, in a nutshell, what this enables you to do is have a conversation naturally, that you talk to many different people, and you listen to many different people, that you're not waiting your turn like on a walkie, and you're not excluded from certain departments. And that really is a game changer, especially as there are more and more remote systems and more crew having to coordinate their efforts to get the shot.
It's just a big extension for the operator of when you're working with a Technocrane and you've got your dolly grip and you've got your guy in the pickle and you're talking and you're doing it all day long, you get very used to the three of you are inside of each other's heads. And now it's the additional chorus that doesn't feel like an intrusion, and it's more information. And it's kind of weird because you go home at night and it's like, wait a minute, I don't hear Kavika in my head right now. One more question. All right, let's go for another question. Okay. Do we have another question? I guess not. I guess we answered all the questions.
Thank you, everyone.
Yeah.
Thank
you.
Thanks, everybody. Thanks for coming.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah.